Good afternoon, and welcome once again to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are coming to you live from the studios of the American Guns and Glory Network here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, related political issues, a few of those going on now, and self-defense issues in general. Fired Up with Bob Irwin is on YouTube. A new show comes out every Thursday at 5 p.m. and they stay online forever. The audio feed from the TV show is rebroadcast on Sunday afternoons at noon on the Nevada Talk Network, which is 7 stations around all over Nevada. You can check them out at www.kely1230.com for the station that's in your neighborhood, but they simulcast at noon on all of those stations. If you have a question or comment on the show, you can send me an email to bob@firedupmail.com. I think it's on the bottom of the information that's on the screen. And questions related to directed at our guests can be directed to that same email, and I will forward it to them for you. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms in the United States every week, rarely covered by the mainstream media. So we always present a few of those on each show for the listener's education. Some are good shootings, some are questionable shootings. Once in a while there's one that's just a bad shooting or just completely stupid. But the reason I pick these particular 3 or 4 out of the hundreds is their educational value to viewers. It's so you can put yourself in the position of the people involved and look at what he did, right, wrong, and learn from that. It's the educational idea. As Fired Up is a nationwide show, you need to understand that the local law prevails in most shooting cases. The laws are different from state to state and county to county and sometimes township to township. If you're involved in an actual case where someone has been injured, or you're charged with a crime, you need to contact a local attorney that does criminal defense work for you. If you need one, we can find one for you. Drop me an email at that email address, and I will direct you to somebody who can do that. Today's guest is firearms trainer and terrorism expert, Lenny Davis. Welcome back, Mr.
Thank you, Bob.
Davis. Again, here we are.
Pleasure to be here.
A bit of your background, if you would, before we get started.
My name's Lenny Davis. I'm a special agent, or retired special agent with the Department of Homeland Security. I have also served for the last 10 years as a subject matter expert in anti-terrorism for the U.S. State Department's Anti-Terrorism Assistance Program, and I am currently the Director of Investigations and Training for Techstratics International, a licensed security and private investigations firm here in Las Vegas.
Cool. We're going to start out with a story in Ohio that was broadcast by WHIO TV7 and the Dayton Daily News in late November this year, just a couple of weeks ago from the time we're filming this. The 22-year-old owner, I can talk today, of a local cell phone store engaged 4 men who broke into his store. The owner said he managed to chase the men away before they took anything. Dayton police were dispatched to the Fix or Sell, that's C-E-L-L, Fix or Sell Now store at 419 Waterville Street just after 5 a.m. after the business owner called to report an attempted robbery. According to the police report, the owner was blocks away when he received notification of the burglary from his store's security system. He arrived at the store. The owner told Dayton police he saw 2 men running from the store. One of the men then stopped, pulled out a gun, and pointed it in his direction. The owner then grabbed an AK-47, presumably a semi-automatic one, from his passenger seat and fired at the men. He told local media that he thinks one of his bullets hit the suspect, but he's not entirely sure. This is quoting the owner. He said, typically robberies at the store are done in 20 to 45 minutes, but I happen to be in the right place at the right time. When he's saying robbery, I think he's means burglaries rather than robberies. He reported the would-be thieves wearing black masks fled on foot after he fired the shots. He followed the two men in his truck as they made their way into a running getaway truck. The 22-year-old owner continued to follow the suspects in his truck. The suspects then began firing shots at his vehicle out of the driver's side window. The owner then ended the pursuit, good idea, at the intersection of Smithville Road and Linden, if you know where that is in Dayton, before returning to the store and then notifying the police. Not a good plan for the robbers or the owners. You can start wherever you want.
Well, for anyone who ever thinks that a semi-automatic rifle is not a good, is never good for home defense or anything, when you're 1-on-4 versus yourself versus 4 suspects, use all the advantage you can get. I have to give him points for that. I don't give him points for pursuing this individual. At that point, once these guys got in the truck and took off, I think that they probably should have the owner at that point should have terminated the pursuit, or not even initiated a pursuit, and then called the police. There's so many problems, as you know, Bob, that we have with law enforcement officers even doing pursuits, and then while you're pursuing a suspect, you cause it. There's another accident caused either by the bad guys or by an inattentive driver, and those suits can be devastating. So at this point, I just don't think this guy should have done that.
Yeah, the thieves here are using threats with a firearm. One of them pointed a gun at the owner of the store. So the crime goes from a minor misdemeanor to a multi-year felony. These robbers have to be near the top of my best ever idiot list for risk versus rewards. I've got to tell you, one of the details here is the store had a metal grate pulled across the doors, and they broke the glass and could reach through and grab a couple of cell phones that were within reach without actually entering the building. So anyway, when the guy sees the thieves running, he should have just called 911 and maybe following them from a distance so he could tell the police which direction, keep in touch with the police on his cell phone, tell them, oh, they're just passing Maple Avenue, whatever. His pursuit of the idiot robbers caused the criminals then to fire at him rather than just point a gun. So now they're up to attempted murder with decades in prison, if not possibly life, for a few dollars worth of cell phones. This is really, what does a stolen cell phone sell for? $100 maybe? I'm just.
And you've got these criminals now that they're looking at this. They've fired shots at him. They don't know where the shots have gone. So now you have to say, okay, you shoot at this guy, you miss him. You're driving down the road. It isn't easy to hit
it's the driver firing.
Yeah, the driver's firing. So he shoots. He doesn't hit his intended target, but it goes into a house and hits a small child. Now potentially you're looking at being under the jail. Again, this is one of those times I would tell this guy, the owner of the store, yeah, granted, they pulled a gun on you. I would have probably returned fire if he was threatening my life. But at that point, once he got in the vehicle, be a good witness. Yeah. Describe the vehicle. Try to get the license number, the color, the make, the model, which way they went. And as you said, Bob, follow at a distance. But don't engage this guy in a French Connection type police, non-police pursuit, because it's no good is going to come from that.
Yeah, there are better choices. If you find yourself chasing a criminal who's fleeing from you and nobody's been hurt, we're only dealing with property crimes here, stop where you are, call 911, and let the guys with the body armor and the free lawyers do the chasing. We're going to break for just a moment for some commercial messages. We'll be right back. If you keep a firearm in your home or carry one for personal protection, it is incredibly important to get some training and keep up with changes in the law. My friend Maggie Mordaunt, owner of Homeland Personal Protection, is the place to go. Maggie teaches at Bass Pro as well as the Clark County Shooting Park and major gun shows here in Clark County and in Reno. You can check out her classes at ccwmaggie.com. That's ccwmaggie.com. Training is necessary. Thank you. And we are back. That was an appropriate commercial to run just ahead of that story. If this guy had perhaps gone to one of Maggie Mordaunt's classes, he would have known better than to chase these guys. I'm just, wow. Don't run after criminals who are trying to get away from you, who haven't got your child under their arm. You know, leave them go. Anyway, this is story from South Carolina, from the state newspaper. It's a single source story because it's not really involved in a major thing, but as I recall, I'm going to read it and find out it was, but this is from just the end of last month on 11/28 of 2017. A local man is facing voluntary manslaughter charges after he was accused in the shooting death of a man he suspected of being involved in a burglary. The incident involved this 31-year-old shooter took place October 12 when the deceased and several others, we don't know how many, were committing a burglary in the 100 block of, go ahead.
Geith's Main Drive.
Geith's Main Drive. Anything with more than 4 letters I can't read on the air. It's west of downtown Greenville, according to the Greenville County Sheriff's Department. The deceased was running from the home when he was shot in the back and died at the scene. The shooter was identified by the agency in the news release as a bystander and a neighbor who heard the commotion. Whoops. Investigators worked with the 13th Circuit Solicitor's Office, whose prosecutors recommended the charges. The warrants state the shooter used an operable firearm to unlawfully kill the victim without malice, but with reckless disregard for life or safety of others. The shooter was also charged with possession of a weapon during a violent crime. He was booked in the Greenville County Detention Center, but has since bonded out, according to the jail. The Greenville News told the 2 others involved in the burglary were identified and are both being held at the Greenville County Detention Center. One is facing possession of a weapon during a violent crime. The other is facing, but both are facing charges of burglary, robbery, conspiracy, and kidnapping. This is a really tough case. Apparently, while the burglars were trying to leave the property, a neighbor came to help and was chasing after the criminals. They were already apparently out of sight, or nearly out of sight. He fired at what he believed was one of the burglars. Clearly, again, it was a friendly neighbor who was chasing the burglars. There's almost no place to start with this. When we always advocate shouted warnings, so you know who you're firing at. That's why the police yell "stop police," or the police yell "police" as they're coming through your door. In the heat of the moment, the stress of a dynamic crime, everything's in motion at the same time. It leaves little time for deliberation. It can result in a really poor decision based on wrong assumptions, is what we have here. Obviously, initially, my first real comment would be a valid thought would be not to fire at fleeing suspects. It seems almost redundant to say that at this point in time in one of these shows, but this is where not only it was wrong, it went horribly wrong.
This is one of those questions that as you said, we've seen this on many times on the show where people have, you can't make that decision. And here's the other thing that gets me. If this guy was aggressing towards the homeowner or something, yes, I could see that being a justifiable shooting. But this guy is leaving. He's fleeing a burglary. The worst case scenario is he's fleeing a property crime. This is where you yell stop at him. You just don't blaze away at someone and take someone's life for a property crime. And unless they're, here in Nevada, now again, you have to check your own local laws and regulations, but here in Nevada you cannot use deadly force for a property crime or trespassing, this type of thing. So this person here in Nevada would also be charged under this because this was a bad shoot. Folks, you have to look at it. Here's a guy now who has completely, his whole world is turned upside down. He's now going to spend probably everything he has for an for attorney's fees if he takes this to court. Even if he is acquitted of these charges, he is going to he's going to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars for legal fees and going through court. And if he isn't acquitted, he's probably going to go to prison. So his life is really, you have to think about this, folks, before you press a trigger. It's not what you see on television. You don't make those split-second decisions and shoot someone and expect not to be the fallout.
Yeah, this is the worst case scenario of anything. Not only do you shoot the wrong guy, you shoot a neighbor who's there to help and is actually pursuing the guys that tried to rip off or did rip off your house. Clearly you don't want to fire at fleeing suspects. I mean, we can't reiterate that enough. Even if it's the right guys, and whatever they stole, whatever it costs, whatever its value that they're running off with, your antique, whatever, it's just a bad trade-off. What are you going to spend in attorneys and defending yourself, even if you shoot the guy who was stealing your stuff? Now, I don't know that North Carolina has regulations that allow firing at fleeing suspects where, notably Texas and a few other states have some exceptions that allow you to fire, but in Texas, by their case law, basically it's legal, which always have to caution people when we do a Texas case that don't do this anywhere, don't do this at home unless your home is in Texas. The absolute worst case scenario. I've defended people that have done bad shootings where you try to explain to a jury how they felt, how they were reacting in the heat of the moment, and the bullets flying around, and they hit the wrong guy, and da-da-da-da. But we do that in police cases.
Well, we see this. We see this a lot in what we call blue-on-blue cases, where you have an undercover or plainclothes officer or an off-duty officer, and he's responding to a crime. And then you see either a patrol officer sometimes or another officer that doesn't recognize him, and he thinks he's a perpetrator because what does he see? He sees a guy with a gun, and he's shooting at somebody or he's pointing a gun at someone, and he thinks he's a bad guy, and he presses the trigger on him, and he actually kills a police officer. This is the worst thing. I spent a lot of years working undercover and doing narcotics cases and a lot of serious undercover cases, and this was always my greatest fear. Is we always were concerned about, someone not knowing, who you were. When narcotics operations are done correctly, or any kind of undercover operation is done correctly, that everyone who's going to be involved in that takedown, in the arrest, they are there at a briefing, and the undercover is known to them, and they know who the undercover is. They see him, they can recognize him. Where it's bad is sometimes you'll have guys that will come in later, or they go, oh, this is going on, let me go play, and they didn't make the briefing, and now they get this. And it's happened so many times where law enforcement officers over the years have been shot by other officers. There's been some times where police officers, either off duty or undercover, have been shot by citizens because they didn't realize that he was a police officer. They just saw a gun and pressed the trigger.
It frequently happens in police cases where you have somebody from another jurisdiction who happens to be in the area, and he intervenes and he yells, "Police, drop the gun," and the undercover guy doesn't recognize him and thinks it's a fake policeman. I mean, if they're both in plain clothes, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
So, you know, you try to brief everybody without letting the cat out of the bag, but this is a really tough case. They don't get worse than this, shooting somebody who's helping you by chasing the criminal. Warnings to both sides. Don't chase other people's criminals either. Call 911 when they're running away.
Be a good witness. Be a good witness. You don't have to be a hero. You don't have to shoot somebody to be a hero. Be a good witness. Be able to tell the police exactly what you saw and how you saw it.
Horrible case. We'll be back after a message from our sponsors. While I'm here, buy something or use the services of, I don't know what sponsor's coming up, but they keep the show on the air. Give them some of your business. It'll help. Thank you. We'll be back. Do you have a firearms trust or need one to pass your guns along? The Justice Department, BATF, has changed the rules in the recent past. If you have a firearm trust, particularly a Class 3 firearm trust, it needs updating. My longtime friend, Attorney Jerry Creed, is an expert in these trusts. Call Jerry at 702-806-7777 at his Summerlin office for a free appointment and evaluation of your situation. That's Jerry Creed, 702-806-7777. Don't end up leaving your firearms to the government because you have an invalid or out-of-date trust. And we are back. I'm sorry, I'm starting to read the story ahead of time, and I'm smiling. You will too. This is from The Patch on the 1st of December in Calumet County, Indiana. A beware of dog sign posted on a tree near the driveway of a home probably should have been the intruder's first warning to stay away. You got to beware of dog sign. Yeah, usually that'll do it, but it didn't here. Now, a Calumet County Township man said he believes he shot and wounded an attempted armed intruder who attempted to break into his house. The homeowner credited his Chihuahua, named Tico, with alerting him after two men forced their way into the home. It's the best alarm I could actually say you could get right there. That little Chihuahua, he told the media. He said he and his fiancee were watching TV in their front. They were watching TV in their front of their house when their porch light went out. That's a clue. He then heard the doorknob jiggling. He said someone then kicked in his back door and came through the back room, then the kitchen, before entering the living room where the couple were sitting. The couple's two small dogs went nuts. The resident told police his dog alerted him after two men wearing black pants, black sweatshirts, and ski masks entered his home. The resident reached under a pillow on the sofa where he keeps his .380 semi-automatic handgun and fired at the intruder. He said the intruder was raising a shotgun, about to put a slug in it when he, the resident, fired. That's an exact quote. I have no idea what that means, but apparently it sounds like he had a double barrel and he was loading it. Now that he's in the house, it doesn't make sense. But anyway, he had a shotgun. The second suspect was coming around the corner when he fired the shots. He believed he struck one of them, not sure which one. The resident told the media one suspect fell down after he fired the shots, but then got up and fled. An avid deer hunter, this is the homeowner again, said he never thought he'd have to shoot another human being. I never shot a person in my life, and I don't ever want to again. Police who responded to the 911 call from the home said just before 10 p.m. Tuesday they found the resident outside when they arrived. The Lake County Sheriff's Department is investigating. Maybe there was a little pursuit going on there. It sounds like a good shoot. The Yappy dogs do make great burglar alarms, in my opinion. Intruders unscrewing your outside light as a prelude to trying the front door is really common. They don't want to be seen trying the front door. When your porch light goes out and the rest of your lights work, don't open the front door to see what happened. If the door is locked, which this one apparently was, they'll look now for another entrance that is not locked, or perhaps a window. This is pretty common burglar technique. The resident went outside to find the criminals after they fled. If he did, that was a mistake. Stay inside, wait for responding officers. Officers can then, if you're outside with a gun, mistake you for a bad guy, and when they start yelling, drop the weapon, drop the weapon. Get on the ground, get handcuffed, and then explain who you are. Don't argue with a cop in the middle of the night pointing a gun at you. Just do what he says.
So we've had several of these over the years that people go along and they want to go chase the guy. They have an encounter. Sometimes they have a gunfight in their house, and they chase the guy outside the house and then continue. And our point is that you are now putting yourself in a lot of danger because you've gone outside your house. If any of you have ever seen any of my previous statements when we've had a shooting in the house, I consider the door is called a fatal funnel in law enforcement. Get them outside that door. If you have a gunfight with them, an exchange in the house, and they go outside, stay right there. Don't go outside. Don't chase these guys. You don't know where they are outside. You don't know if they have other accomplices. Stay there. Make them come back through that fatal funnel, through that door. If they want to do that, that's on them. Don't put yourself in a bad situation. Tactically, this was great, and I'm wondering, we were talking about whether or not he was loading a slug, whether it was double barrel, may have been trying to...
Maybe he was chambering one in a pump.
Chambering around with a pump, we don't know. But, I mean, at this point, here's a guy who, he's got a .380 with him, and he engages a guy in a gunfight, and this guy leaves. Don't go chase him. Stay there. He's got his fiance, he's got his dogs there, we always, I always call these animals ankle biters, small dogs. I actually love all dogs, but there was an old saying, it's not the size of the dog, it's the size of the fight in the dog. Yeah. And in this case, this little Tico, and he sounded the alarm, and these folks were able to arm themselves and defend themselves. So it doesn't have to be a Rottweiler or a Malinois or a German Shepherd or a trained Kodiak bear. You can have anything that makes noise and goes, hey, something's out there, Dad, yeah. and go from there.
They wake you up. And it doesn't say in the article, I say this one just happened, so there weren't a lot of details in the case. They didn't say whether the guy with the shotgun that he was trying to load or whatever left with the shotgun, but if he did, chasing a guy with a 12 gauge when you've got a .380 just doesn't show rational sense.
Bob, as we've said before, never bring a handgun to a shotgun fight, okay? You're undergunned. A 12-gauge shotgun's a very, very potent weapon, so make sure that you don't go out there undergunned.
Hey, that's going to do it for this episode. I thank you for watching Fired Up. Please share these broadcasts with your friends and support our sponsors. You should find a share logo somewhere on our stuff that's coming up on your screen. and it will forward it to all your other Facebook friends or whatever it is. I don't understand anything about that, but we got people here doing that. The commercials, again, keep us on the air. Please patronize our sponsors. Capitalism wins every time. We'll be back next Thursday here on YouTube at the American Guns and Glory Network. Thanks so much for watching.